All right, guys, it is time to build our player pool for DraftKings this week as we try to piece the puzzle completely together for once. I think we're getting close here. There's a lot of good game stacks this week. We'll cover top plays at each position, the full pool that I'm kind of considering, and then the game stacks that I am looking at. Start out with quarterback. Core plays at the quarterback position. Top guy on the board. Very clear here. It's without a shadow of a doubt. Haynes King has to be the top guy on the board as a 1.5 point underdog. I think they should be a 1.5 point favorite, but that's just me. I'd bet either way, whichever one was the dog in this one because of just Georgia Tech's had such variability in these types of matchups. It's the rushing upside and the rushing floor with the touchdown equity around the goal line. There is nobody in all of college football who is better at putting a team on his back than Haynes King. So if we're going to buy into one person against the Manny Diaz defense that has struggled against a number of teams, it's Haynes King. He's just playing out of this world. He's got to be the top option. He's the best points projected play. He's literally the best raw projection for me this week at the quarterback position and the best points per dollar play. I thought he should have been mid 9Ks in this one. Sub Jay Woody. I really thought King was going to be mid 9Ks in this matchup. And for him to come in at 8,300 with what he presents, I mean, you could be looking at a 20-point game, 20 rushing attempt game. Very similar. I think this weight game is a very good comparison for him in that one. So I think 30 points is well within the realm of possibility here. So I'm going to be heavily invested in Haynes King in this spot. Core play number 2 comes from the highest over-under in this one. Josh Hoover is going to throw for 300 yards in this game. He does not have the same rushing upside, but his passing floor gives him basically a 25-point start. And I think you could be seeing 3 to 4 to 5 passing touchdowns in this one. I would expect something at worst in the upper 20s, very similar to this Kansas State game. He played absolutely awful in that matchup. Still managed to drop 28. So at 8,300 on him, coincidentally, same price as Haynes King. He's the second best points per dollar play on the slate. Also the second highest projection. It's very easy to see him getting that 300-yard bonus. It's very easy to see him throwing for 3 touchdowns. And then it's just a question of, does he find pay dirt on the ground? Luckily, but otherwise I wouldn't be too concerned with his rushing production because his passing floor is so good. The ceiling on King's just higher because King can literally do 300 yards passing and 100 yards rushing with 3 touchdowns on the ground. Hoover just does not have that ceiling, but he has the floor, and the game environment is literally the best on the slate. Final core play at quarterback. This is because of the price and because of what he can do overall. There is risk. I will fully admit this is not for the faint of heart. There is potential of a benching. I'm taking Trinidad Chambliss as my third core play. It did not play out perfect last week. He did not have the rushing upside. He threw the ball okay. I don't think this is a Georgia defense that you need to be afraid of. So Ole Miss is going to score. We trust Lane Kiffin offenses. I think the price is great on Chambliss at 6,800. If he was 8,500 or 8K or 7,500, maybe he's not in my pool. Maybe he's just a GPP option. Maybe he's not even considered. At this price tag at 68, I'm really just looking for 25 points. He's done that against what I would argue is probably a better defense than Georgia in LSU. He was able to hang 26. So if he can give me that, that's going to get me my 3.5x. And I think he has the upside to get to the 30-point mark and give me 4x. I think 4x is well in play for Chambliss. If he can get me 60 to 70 yards rushing and find pay dirt once or twice, he has 300-yard passing upside. The Ole Miss defense isn't exactly great. I think this game does have sneaky shootout potential. Um, so I think I will take shots on Chambliss here and there. And I think he needs to be a core option because he's really, to me, the best play under 8K. Most of these guys are in those 8K range. I think you can get some different builds with Chambliss, so I'm going to be on him as a core option for me. That's more of my gut feeling, and less of what I think the projections are going to tell you. I think it's more so you just go for broke on that one. GPP options, the top guys that I think might go under-owned by comparison to their upside. I'm going to start it out with my favorite one. He played awful last week, but the fact of the matter is that as Mateer continues to get healthier, I'm not afraid whatsoever of the South Carolina defense. Mateer played terrible last week. Fully agree. He's got similar rushing capability to Chambliss, and his passing ceiling isn't necessarily the same, but there was a reason why he's been priced at 8,300, 9,400, 9K. The fact of the matter is that at 6,100 last week, people did buy into it, and we knew he wasn't healthy. Texas is a very good defense. It was a bad spot to be playing Mateer, but people played him anyway, and they got burnt by it. Because they got burnt by it, and this team's on the road, and the opponent rank says 23rd, people are going to say, well, I don't want to play him here either. I think you take shots here in your 20 entry max stuff. You get, 2 to 3, probably 10 to 20% is where I would want to be. But it's worthwhile because I think his ownership comes in at sub 15. And if you can get that ceiling game out of him, then you're going to end up paying off, specifically if he can somehow outscore the likes of Haynes King, Josh Hoover, Sawyer Robertson, Marcel Reed, right? If he outscores those other guys at the top, people will gravitate more to those other ones. He outscores them. Now you got leverage on the field. There is plenty of paths for him to outscore those guys, and his stack partner is perfection as pricing goes. So I do like getting shots on Mateer. I'll probably try to end up in the 20% range for me. Second guy from the GPP standpoint, the team total is absolutely abysmal, but I'm going to buy DeMond Williams in this spot. Jaden Maeva played fairly well against this Michigan defense. It's not the Michigan defense of old. And I like DeMond Williams. He has good rushing upside. I like I said, the key to all of these quarterbacks is rushing capability. Actually, one thing I did want to note, because I'm going to end up needing to note it in the FanDuel thing tomorrow. Be certain, check your weather, specifically because I ended up I was going to be heavier on USC on the FanDuel builds, but the weather sounds like it might be some rain with 15-mile-an-hour winds. So I need to keep an eye on your weather. The later in the year we get, you can get snow games up in the north. You can get some weird stuff. So you need to keep an eye on those things. So also double check those. Anything that's winds sustained over 20 miles an hour, you need to downgrade passing games. And anything with, I don't really worry about rain without wind, but any snow or things like that, downgrade slightly for sure by comparison to where you would be if it was just a neutral dome game, let's say. So DeMond Williams is a very accomplished passer. He's very accurate. He's got decent weapons. I think you could buy into Williams in this spot. We saw USC dominate this Michigan defense last week. Granted, it was in California. They only have a 22-point total. So I think people are going to be off of Williams, and they're definitely going to gravitate to your Cade Klubnik, Josh Hoover, Haynes King guys and stay away from DeMond Williams. I think he's a very good play, though. By comparison, he has very good upside in a number of ways, and he's been showcasing more and more his athletic capability. Last week against Rutgers was just an insane game, and he's one of the few guys in the country who has that kind of upside, given how he plays. We'll see. I'm interested to see how he plays in this one. He's really only played one game out of the state of Washington so far this year, and that was that Maryland game, which they were sleepy, but he carried them at the end of the game. So I do have minimal interest there, less than Mateer, but probably in the 5 to 10% range, just to make sure I'm covered in case he has a ceiling game here. All right, the rest of the pool, there's 3 more guys that I'm interested in at quarterback. You have to be interested in Sawyer Robertson. These are, I will say, these are standalone plays. Like your game stacks, you're going to be interested in more guys, but those are one-offs, right? For me, if like we'll use an example as Georgia Tech, right? Georgia Tech Duke, I think is a very good game to target. I will have interest in Darian Mensah in that game at 6,900, but he's not a guy that I would want to play outside of those game stacks. So he's a game stack only play. These guys I'm willing to play not within game stacks, but they're guys that I want to get exposure to. So Robertson, the thing with him is he's very similar to Hoover from the pass standpoint. He's been very good throwing the football. He's got a couple great stack partners. And the price is good at 8,900. It's one of the lowest we've seen from him. What we haven't seen is a Sawyer Robertson rushing ceiling game, and it's still out there. So the reason that he's not a core play is I think Bryson Washington's getting healthier, and he's missed kind of these last few games. He's kind of been moving out of the lineup, which killed me in this Oklahoma State game. Like if Bryson Washington's healthy, he does something. And what I know for a fact is at some point in the near future, everybody's going to be on Robertson, and Bryson Washington's going to pop for 5 touchdowns because I've seen it happen too many times with Sawyer Robertson, where he's playing great, and next thing you know, Robertson has 0 passing touchdowns or 1 passing touchdown in the game. They score 42, and it's freaking Bryson Washington with 5 touchdowns and 170 yards rushing, So I see that coming. Now, what we haven't seen is a Sawyer Robertson good rushing game, which is it's atypical for him. So I do expect that he has more ceiling in the tank than what he's even shown at these 38s and 20s, 26s. They've been playing from behind. Now SMU has, what he's dropped the opponents he's dropped those 2 monsters on have 2 of the worst pass defenses in the country. SMU's a pass funnel. TCU, not exactly a great pass defense either. I would not put them in the Kansas State, Arizona State territory. I would expect we see something in the neighborhood. If you said, hey, what's his, likeliest outcome? I would say 330 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and runs for 20 yards, right? So I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 points, 25, 30 points. Very fair projection. I just think that King is probably slightly better. All right, King is definitely better. I think Hoover slightly preferred to Sawyer, but I'm going to want to play this both ways, some Sawyer and some through the run game. All right, final guy in the pool. I debated Taylor Green, and I probably had Taylor Green in this pool for a while. This pains me, and I don't know. I think this is a blind spot. Some guys, you just have blind spots. I think Marcel Reed, I don't like as a player, and I just don't appreciate his game. That's what we'll go with. is I don't know that the ceiling's there. I don't like his passing. He doesn't throw the ball particularly well. He has two very easy stack partners. I prefer Concepcion to Craver this week. That's just my feeling. He's run the ball okay, but I think I need to buy more into it because of the loss of Le'Veon Moss and because CJ Carr absolutely ripped Arkansas apart. So I'm going to buy more into Reed this week than I normally would because the matchup's as good as it's ever going to get. And the surrounding pieces are as set up for him to be very good as it's ever going to get. So I'm going to buy into Reed, and I'm going to take and get some level of ownership more than I would expect to want to get. And then I got to mention Klubnik. He was the last guy in my pool. I'm going to be in on my triples. Y'all know I love Clemson triples. I'm playing Klubnik, and then we'll talk about the other two here in a second. Klubnik is banged up with an ankle issue. Does it take away some of his rushing capability? We're going to have to keep an eye on this. I do expect him to play. Dabo expects him to play. Everybody expects him to play. So I think he's in there. 25 points feels like kind of where he's going to be. 280 yards, multiple touchdowns, some rushing capability. But I think his rushing, we see it more similar to the UNC and Syracuse games. They should be pushed by SMU. And as I said, SMU is a massive pass funnel defense. So everything goes through the pass game. They allow passing yards in bunches. So I'm going to buy into the Clemson pass attack specifically. All right, running backs. So core play number 1. It's going to come as no surprise. We just finished talking about Clemson. Adam Randall. I love Adam Randall every week. I buy into Adam Randall. He's too cheap every week. 6,700. I did just say this is a pass funnel defense. Every time somebody gets a carry for Clemson, it's going to be Adam Randall. He also is a converted wide receiver. We're all well aware of that. He can catch the football too. So he makes the ideal stack partner to get a triple with Klubnik. So if I want to play that, I'm going to play Clemson stacks. It's going to be Adam Randall, my favorite wide receiver, and Cade Klubnik. So I'll get my triple, and I have a bring back that I like that we're going to talk about at a different position. So I think Adam Randall is a core play for me. If Klubnik's out, Randall gets even more of a boost, in my opinion, because they're going to have to go more to him. And Vizina's not great. He's not Cade Klubnik. I don't think Vizina is going to end up being the starter there. If he was, I'd invest in some of his stuff, but I'm not a Vizina believer, we'll say. Core play numero dos. Very easy core play. Arkansas flat out sucks on defense. Reuben Owens starting to look like the 5-star that he was when he was recruited. 21 carries, 17 carries with Moss banged up. Price is way too cheap. Matchups better than it's been even the last 2 weeks. I think at 4,400, you're staring right down the barrel at a 20-point game. It's very difficult not to lock him in. I will have triples of Reed, Owens, and Concepcion, and then I might mix in some Reed, Owens, and Craver. It's going to be hard for me not to play Reuben Owens on all of the teams. I'm probably going to end up there. He's just too good of a play, too good of a matchup. He's going to get close to 20 touches in this one, and his touchdown equity should be through the roof. I think this could easily be the Reuben Owens breakout game, and I would be shocked if he's not 30+% owned in most contests. I'm probably going to want to be overweight on the field at 60 to 70% for the price tag. All right. That concludes core plays, which is kind of sad. But the next, what could be core play, we're going to have to talk about. So this is something to monitor. Justice Haynes banged up. They're saying I think there's a chance he could play. I still think it's a rib issue. Nobody's come out and said it. I've seen some people say they don't think he's going to play. If he does not play, that easily puts Jordan Marshall as a core play against Washington. Washington's defense is banged up across the board. So if Marshall ends up getting the start and all the run, I know he wasn't great against USC. He just needs volume and to find the end zone. I think he gets that volume. And I think he will find the end zone if he gets the 20 carries, 22, 23 carries that I think he can get in this offense. I'll buy into it at 4,200. I'll be heavily invested there. I think it's a great play. And he could be a good pivot option for you off of Reuben Owens. So that will be a situation to monitor. If Haynes gets announced out, then Marshall becomes a core play, and he's not necessarily a guy that you have to play with Owens, but he's a guy that you could use to pivot off of Reuben Owens, certainly. Granted, you could easily just play all three of the big boys or play both of them and another big guy and then see. All right, GPP options. I mentioned him when I talked about Baylor. That game's the game I want pieces of. So I have 2 game stacks that I built already. All of them include Josh Hoover because I think that offense runs through Josh Hoover. But if I'm going to play this Baylor offense in a different way, it's going to be playing Sawyer Robertson on one side, and then the second way is going to be playing it through Bryson Washington. We haven't gotten the monster. He had 2 good performances. He actually had a decent performance against SMU, which gives me some credence to that Adam Randall play. I don't think Adam Randall's anywhere in the ballpark from a running back standpoint of Bryson Washington. We still haven't gotten that 100-yard, 4 touchdown game that I know Washington's capable of. He's been banged up, but he's still getting points. I think this is the time to buy low. Coming off the bye week, he should be a lot more healthy. I really do think we get a ceiling game here out of Bryson Washington. It feels like the opportune time to pivot off of Sawyer Robertson and get to Bryson Washington. So I'm going to have some exposure here, knowing that it could be a risk. But I think it's going to be lower ownership than it should be if he had been healthy for the last couple weeks. Next guy is just Mr. Explosive. Nate Shepherd, there's risks to this, but he's going to come in. I think he comes in under-owned, being right next to Adam Randall. I would say 7 out of 10 people that click in this range at this 6,600, 6,700 range are going to click Adam Randall. There's nothing wrong with clicking Nate Shepherd. He's an electric weapon out of the backfield. He's coming on strong. I've been playing him for a good bit here. I've started locking him in NC State, Duke, or NC State, Syracuse, and Cal games. I played him. Now, he does lose some goal line equity to Anderson Castle. So you're going to need to score long touchdowns. He very well has that capability. He's just a weapon right now. I don't think he comes in near the ownership of Randall because of the splitting of the work, but he's capable of house calling one from anywhere, and he makes for a great option to pair with Haynes King and some of his receivers because they're going to need a score to keep up, certainly. Final GPP option. I'm going to do this. He broke my heart last week. He missed the second half of that game. I think he comes in under-owned in this one. He did not play the second half. Cameron Dickey was on an absolute heater. We know Jacoby Williams is explosive as all get out. He's very good in the pass game. I think there are plenty of avenues that his price being this low makes him a very good play because he's priced right next to another guy that's very good as well. I'll be in on taking a shot here and there on Williams. I think he's a quality play. Price is nice and low, the lowest it's been. So he has upside and a ceiling in this one. And Arizona State is a decent defense. but they're gonna struggle a bit with this Texas Tech offense, which is quality. No worries if Bayer Morton's in or out. Jacoby Williams and Cameron Dickey are quality plays for sure. All right. Rest of the pool. We mentioned his teammate. I think Dickey has to be in your pool. I'm not the biggest Cameron Dickey fan. He had a monster last week. I think people are going to end up. This is another reason why I think Bryson Washington goes underowned. I think a lot of people flock to Cameron Dickey. And there's another guy in this range that I think Dickey's going to take ownership away from. It's very easy that we end up with another, 70 yards and a touchdown game like this 13.7. Similar to Marcel Reed, Cameron Dickey's a blind spot for me. I just end up not wanting to get there. So it can be problematic. I would recommend getting some pieces of Dickey if I'm playing 20 max. I will get there a little bit. He's the highest projected player on the slate, or running back on the slate. I have a hard time getting here. I'm going to, because I'm going to force myself to. I just won't be there as much as I probably should. Next guy up, I mentioned we saw Michigan get absolutely torched last week on the ground by a walk-on running back for USC and a guy that they announced is out. Jonah Coleman's far better than all of those guys that they got beat up by last week. He's very good in the pass game. He has a very good floor from that specifically as well. I think that there is a legitimate possibility that he ends up with 100 yards rushing and somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 catches for 40 yards. His touchdowns around the goal line are there. I think mid-20s seems like a reasonable spot for him to be. Projects pretty well. I'm interested because I think most of the ownership goes to Dickey in this spot at 7,700, or people pay down and they don't want to get up to the Bryson Washingtons and the Jonah Colemans, making them under-owned. But they do have the capability to be able to make you a good score. I prefer, if I was ranking them, I'd go Washington, Dickey, Coleman. That's just because I don't like the travel from West Coast to East Coast. They haven't really traveled much. Now, he did fine in the Maryland game, but that was based on the receiving volume that he got, because that's another 12 points. So half of his production came from the receiving side of it. And his yards per carry has been getting just going down every week, mainly because they have so much injuries on the roster right now. All right, other 3 guys in the pool. It comes down to volume, man. Like, I don't know that he's going to end up being great. I just think he gets close to 20 points because the volume's so good. He's going to get, a couple catches a game. He's got a good floor receiving the football. He's got a good roll around the goal line, and he gets 20 to 25 touches a game. So it's kind of hard not to like Kewan Lacey at 6,300. He's a guy that if he was in the 7s, I probably wouldn't like. But a workhorse back in a game that I think ends up going more shootout than not. This is not a dominant Georgia defense. It's a good, very good Georgia defense. But Kewan Lacey going to be able to run the football a little bit. I think we can buy into Lacey as a workhorse at 63. Not my favorite play, but he's one of the better workhorse backs down here in this range. Next guy, I'm not going to not play Bo Jackson. I think a lot of that Jacoby Williams, what could be Jacoby Williams ownership, goes to Bo Jackson probably in this spot. Wisconsin's terrible. CJ Donaldson's still getting too much work for me, but the explosive weapon is Bo Jackson. If somebody's going to pop for 150 yards and multiple scores, it's Bo Jackson. It's not CJ Donaldson. So the 100-yard game and multiple touchdowns is coming. It's just a matter of when, not if. Floor's really good. Usage has been good. I do expect that Bo Jackson ends up being a solid play. Do I think he wins me the GPP? There's probably a slimmer outcome of that. I think it's probably a 10% chance. Um, so it's worth taking shots. How much am I going to get here is a question because of the ability to go down to a Ruben Owens or potentially a Jordan Marshall more than likely. Your one cheap option that I have the most interest in, Kedrick Toscano came back last week. He had been banged up. He was finally not on the injury report. He's been getting worked back in. He's now the lead back. He kind of took over for Ishmael Mahdi. Mahdi's going to be involved, but Toscano led the team in rushing attempts last week. He had almost 100 yards, scored a touchdown against BYU, which is a stout BYU defense, specifically in the situation where they had a ton of rain in that game. It was delayed. That was we know we're going to ground and pound type deal. So 13 carries, 90 yards, and a touch. I really like. And at 3,200, taking on a Houston team that I don't think is particularly great on defense. It's solid, but it's not great. I like his prospects of being able to get going here. I'm going to take plenty of shots on this. I do think this is could be an underowned aspect as a third piece in a backfield if I want to be able to get some more high-end weaponry or get some high-end quarterbacks together with really good plays. So Toscano is my top option as a flex under probably at 3,200. He's probably my top option as a flex play, depending on what I'm stacking up. But raw points wise, I would like Toscano a good bit as a flex play. I've been leaning more into the wide receivers at flex lately, but typically I like to get a running back. But Toscano's a very good fit as an option there. It's not without risk, but I do like it. All right, core plays at wide receiver. It's going to shock nobody. McAllister's too cheap at 6,300. He should be in the mid sevens. Yes, I've talked about how fluky the last two games were when how he got the late touchdowns. People got bailed out by playing him last week. Both those touchdowns were super late. Almost all the yardage was super late. It was garbagey, but he got there. So to some extent, he needs to be in the pool. He's by far and away the best player to pair with Josh Hoover. Another guy, he's just vastly underpriced for what he is. Similarly, it was the fourth down touchdown late in that one that got him there. But it's still there. He's still the best player in this offense from a pass catching wise, and they struggle to run the football. Y'all know I hesitate to term myself the Clemson wide receiver whisperer, but dating back to the ACC championship game last year, I have gotten this freaking wide receiver core right every week. If it's going to be a TJ Moore week, I hit it. If it's going to be a Wesco week, I hit it. This is a Wesco week. So, little history on this. In that ACC title game, you can go back and listen to the Sharpen the Point podcast from the title games last year on the Tomahawk Nation Network, if it's still up, potentially. But you can look it up. Bryant Wesco, I predicted a breakout game for him in the SMU game, in that ACC title game that week last year. He exploded. Now, lest we forget, who was the opponent that I predicted the Eric McAllister blow-up game against? SMU. 8 catches, 254, and 3 touchdowns. One more. Let's go one more, just to be safe here. Who did I predict the Josh Cameron blow-up game against? That's right, SMU. 9 for 151 and 2. So we get the pass funnel defense that I have picked on routinely with great success. And I'm going to continue to pick on it with Bryant Wesco again for the second time. I think we're going to see 7, 118, and 2 in this game. Give me 30 plus points out of Wesco. He's my favorite wide receiver on the board. It's not close. I think he should be the number one wide receiver this week. There are other options that are very good, but at 5,900, that is ridiculous and is sacrilegious that he is not priced over 7K. I think McAllister and Wesco should both be in the sevens. They're too cheap. They're staples in my lineup. They're number one and number two for me this week, no doubt about it. Now, I mentioned Josh Cameron. Look, these are three of my favorite wide receivers, so objectivity is being thrown out the window. I say it, and I'm going to say it every week. This is the same thing. The Baylor offense, somebody explodes every time we play. I got it right against SMU. He is a guy who just pops for 3 touchdowns. I'm going to make him a core play. He's my third favorite of the 3. It's not close. It's Wesco 1, McAllister 2, Cameron 3, and it's a distant 3 in the core options. But I know he's capable of 3 touchdown games. He goes through these lulls and then explodes again. Could this be the explosion week? Maybe. But as you can see, I'm going to play it a couple different ways to cover my bases. I think it could be a Bryson Washington explosion week. And I think otherwise, I think it's a Cameron week. It's one or the other, maybe both. Maybe Cameron gets 2 touchdowns. Maybe Washington runs for 4. It's very possible in this situation. Now, I'm going to make this guy a core play. I debated this one, but I wanted to have more than 3. And I wanted a cheap guy. I'm playing Satania as a core play, even if I don't want to play Mateer because the price is 3,600. The defense isn't great. And no matter what, he's going to get a ton of volume in this offense. I like Satania. I think he's going to end up being the top option. He's the top option in this offense because it's an Arbuckle system. It likes to favor the slot. Deion Burke's not playing the slot, and the price is far too cheap. So I think a lot of people do end up here, but I'm perfectly content going here. He's my favorite cheap option because he's the safest cheap option. I think I'm pretty much guaranteed getting me 10 points. I think there's other guys that have, they don't have the same ceiling and they don't have the same floor, but they're possible that they outscore him. They're good pivot plays, but for my money, I'm going to go Satania as a core option just because I think he has the highest ceiling floor combination in the low price range. All right. One injury thing to note, keep an eye on Sam Levitt. He is probable. Jordan Tyson gets all the targets. It is Texas Tech. It is a very good defense. I think they're going to struggle mightily. If they end up putting up points, it's going to come through Tyson. You're going to have to play some Tyson. He's not a core play. He's not necessarily even a GPP play, but he's a guy that has to be in your pool because I would prefer to play him with a healthy Levitt over playing Jeremiah Smith, just for the simple fact that I think they're very similar and more volume is going to go through Tyson because they're going to be trailing in this one to Texas Tech. GPP options. I have to talk about him because nobody's going to play him. I mean, look at the guys around him. I think a lot of ownership goes to literally Craver, Boston, Williams, McAllister, Concepcion, Wesco, Trigg, Cameron. Every single one of those guys should be more owned. They have a big team total, man. I've been a Barcade guy all year. That team total on Duke is 32. The game total is not dissimilar from the Baylor TCU game. Cooper Barcade's the alpha in this system. We haven't gotten a 100-yard, 1 or 2 touchdown game yet. I said the touchdowns were coming early in the season. They've come 1 in every game, each or at least 1, and he's had 4 in the last 3 games. He just hasn't gotten that 100-yard game yet. They throw the ball more than anybody, pass rate over expectation in the country. They're chucking it with Mensa. If I'm going to game stack this one, I think you have to have Barkate with Haynes King. And I think you realistically could have multiple pass catchers, but I think Barkate with Shepard and Haynes King is a great option. And then you could maybe add a Georgia Tech receiver. But I think Barkate is a great option as a GPP leverage play, because if he can outscore the guys around him, or if you play two of the guys around him with him, his ownership is going to come in extremely low because a lot of these other guys around him are going to get steamed a lot more. Other GPP options. Is it a GPP week if we don't talk Kobe Prentice? I mean, I think he has to be a GPP option. I think people would make him core play. There's too much risk here for me. So I would much prefer Satania over him. I think people go to here. He might not fit the traditional sense of what I would call a GPP play where he comes in under owned. I think he ends up being the second piece in a lot of those stacks with Sawyer Robertson. I just don't trust that. He is the ultimate. He can't keep getting away with this meme, and he does. So just keep playing him. You know, I just don't think you cannot keep him in a pool at this point, considering he consistently scores these freaking touchdowns on few targets. Like how many he had 3 targets that week. He had 1 target the week before. He has 4 total targets that have gone for 2 catches, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. I don't think he can keep getting away with it, but I'm not betting against it at this point. So he's a guy that I like pairing with Robertson and with Josh Cameron in double stacks. I don't mind going just Prentice on the off shot that he just keeps scoring. Next GPP option. I'm liking this kid more and more. I don't know I wonder how owned he ends up coming in. It would be interesting to see. I just don't have that services. I don't pay for anything in college football. I do it myself. This kid's good. He looked so good last week against USC. Now, how much are they going to have to throw the ball against Washington? I think Washington's a good defense, not a great defense. This is the number 1 wide receiver for Michigan. So if you're going to play a Michigan player that's not a running back, I would play Marsh. This kid looks great. I'm going to take shots at 3,900. I think he's well on his way to being the number 1 target in this offense, and the number 1. I think he is the number 1 target in this offense. I like the kid. I'm definitely going to want to take shots here. He's going to be a very good play, in my opinion. I think there's other guys around him that people are going to go to some extent, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag down here, but I really do like Andrew Marsh, and I like Andrew Marsh going forward. So he's a guy that I want to highlight, if for no other reason that for future games the rest of the season and even going forward into next year, he's a guy that you're going to want to keep your eye on because he's very, very good. Last GPP option. This is a true dart throw. We talked about Trinidad Chambliss. Caden Lee's starting to come on. The target volume isn't where I want it to be. You know, I wish he had more targets. It's kind of not been as many as I would like. He's kind of in the 5 to 6 target range. They've been spreading the ball around a little more than I would like. In a game that I do expect them to trail, I think Caden Lee ends up being – I think ownership's very spread out with these Ole Miss wide receivers. Lee's going to come in under owned for the price. He's a guy coming into the season I really expected to be the number 1 option in this offense. But at 3,400, I'm willing to take shots because I think if we get that 14, 15-point game, it's all I need. I don't need him to go for 30. I don't need him to go for 20. But I do think he has the capability, and I think he's been on the field enough. So I would say I'm going to play some Caden Lee, specifically when I have Chambliss out there and I want to get some value in. That's the way I'm going to do it. Other players in the pool, Jeremiah Smith is always in your pool. There's never a reason not to have him in there. His floor is unreal. I wonder if they're making a little bit of a Heisman push here. They need to boost his numbers even more, though. He's not getting enough receiving volume. They seem to scheme him for a touchdown every week, but they don't seem to be wanting to get him the full set of yardage. I probably prefer Tyson and a bunch of other guys below him. I'll get to Smith, but not a lot. I don't want to pay the 9K to get there. I think that there's a lot better options. Guys with more ceiling, we'll say, down here. Mario Craver, I think he needs to stay in the pool. He's been playing great. 20, 25, 23 plus points in 4 of 6. So I think you keep him in the pool. Arkansas is so terrible that it's very easy for him to have a 200-yard game or 100 plus and multiple touchdowns. I think you have to take some shots. I prefer Concepcion. I'm going to keep Concepcion in the pool as well. I think the floor is better for Concepcion. The ceiling is better for Craver. I think you take shots on both. But like I said, in that range, there's a lot of options in there for sure. Denzel Boston, if you're going to play DeMond Williams, you have to play Boston with him. The ceiling games haven't quite been there yet, but we've seen it against Washington State. We've seen it against Rutgers. Now, those are terrible defenses. I think the ceiling games are in there. This is probably on the lower end. It's really only if I'm playing DeMond Williams will I want to play Denzel Boston. That's kind of when I would want to play him for the most part. So I guess technically speaking, he's in the pool, but he's only in the pool because I want to stack him. Let's see. We got Concepcion. Carnell Tate, similar to Jeremiah Smith, except for without the same floor. I think you got to keep Tate in your pool. There is ways that if you end up in this 5,200 range, I think you just take the shot on Tate just because if you're filling in the back end of a lineup, you do it with him. If you can't get the Josh Cameron, you go to Tate. Or if you play in Bryson Washington, don't want to get there, don't want to game stack that, whatever. I have no issues getting to Tate. There are explosion games in here. He can get to 100 yards with a score. And just because they're rolling all the coverage to Jeremiah Smith. So there's plenty of ways for him to pay this out. And 5,200, very reasonable. If he was in the 6s, I'd be out on that. But at 52, perfectly content playing that. Points per dollar wise, is a great play. Amari Thomas hit huge for us last week at 3,200. We were on the train early. We saw it coming. I think you stay on the train a little bit here. Arizona, not exactly the best defense. I don't mind taking shots. Parker Kingston had a long touchdown. Amari Thomas is the number one in this offense. Tanner Koziel is banged up and questionable. It's potentially possible that he does not play, if not be limited. That's going to mean more targets go to Thomas. I like playing Thomas. I'll probably will play a little bit of my Houston triple with Riscano as the bring back. He's the guy I trust the most on Arizona. So I'll play a little bit of that. I'll probably play a game stack there. But Amari Thomas, I'm willing to take shots on by himself. He's the only guy in the mid 4s that I'm really comfortable with. So I will be in there. And then Zach Branch is probably my preferred bring back from the Ole Miss UGA game here. He's not really been playing the explosive role that I had hoped. He's kind of playing the let me throw a screen pass to you role. Hopefully they dial up like a fake screen go at some point because they need to get the ball down the field to this kid. He is electric when he gets it in his hands. Excuse me. And he can oust one at any point in time. I do love the target volume with 9 catches last week. But what are they going to do going forward? I need some explosiveness, man. I think one's coming. He just hasn't broken one of those. If they keep throwing him targets, he's going to get there. In these more competitive games, he's done pretty well, sans Alabama. If we can get more of a Tennessee performance with an explosive, I think it's in there. I prefer him to Colby Young on DK because I think target volumes could be a lot more for Zach Branch. FanDuel-wise, I'm more in on Colby Young, though. But, yeah, Zach Branch is in the pool. Not exactly all the way in, though. 2 value options to consider. I prefer Marsh in this spot, but I also don't hate if you want to take shots on Quayshawn Brown. He's playing a little bit more than some of the other guys. He's been more consistent than the other cheap Duke wide receivers. If you don't want to pay up for Barcate, You play Quayshawn Brown. I do not mind Quayshawn and Barkate together. Like I said, they throw the ball a ton. You can easily do those two with Haynes King. I think you can play those two and not even play Darian Mensah because of the pass volume. I think that both of them can get there because of their relative pricing, even without Mensah. But if you're playing Mensah, I think double stacking Mensah is a great play as well. He's in play from a game stack standpoint. The only way I'm playing that a Duke double or triple stack is going to be if I'm playing Haynes King and bringing that back, certainly. Final play down cheap. So this is for the most part, the lowest I'm willing to go. I will go deeper if I need to. I think Jordan Hudson's the top wide receiver for SMU. So when I do my Clemson triples, I'm bringing it back with Hudson. Notice I haven't talked about any other SMU player. Romello Brinson started the year as the guy, but that was because Hudson was banged up. Hudson has since come back and leads the team in targets. Each of the last few, 7 targets. So I like getting 7 targets from my guys. He hasn't hit that 100 yards. Hudson has been a very temperamental weapon for years, but at 3,300, it's a great price tag to pay. It allows me to get plenty of stuff with my Clemson stuff. I have no issues not even playing Klubnik if you want to go Hudson, Wesco, Randall, and just avoid the Klubnik thing altogether. No problem there. You want to add Klubnik in, no issues as well. I'll be playing it both ways. He's a great ancillary piece, though. If you want to play Wesco, Hudson as 2 of your wide receivers to get a bunch of other stuff in, no problem there either. Lots of good stuff there. Hudson's good play. All right, game stacks. Favorite game stacks, 100%. We've mentioned it. Baylor TCU is a one heck of a good game stack. You're going to want a lot of exposure to this. I think you play it 2 ways. One is Hoover McAllister, and if you want a third weapon, sure. And then you either do from the Baylor side, Sawyer Robertson. My first way of doing it was Hoover, McAllister, Robertson with Prentice and Cameron. The other way to do it is Hoover, McAllister. I think Cameron with Bryson Washington or just Bryson Washington. I think there's 2 ways to play that. So you got a lot of variety you can go to. There are plenty of routes where Bryson Washington with the TCU side is a very smart play. That's a aspect of Bryson Washington scores a lot of points early, no matter how it works, and then they're out into a lead, or Robertson even scores something early, and then it's a lead that TCU now needs to play catch up, and Bryson Washington just keeps ripping touchdowns. That's the easy way to play it. We mentioned the Duke Georgia Tech game. There's a multitude of ways to play this. I think any way you play this as a game stack, Haynes King is involved. And then you pick either 2 of the Duke wide receivers, 1 Duke wide receiver with Nate Shepard, and then you can play Mensah. I just don't think you have to play Mensah. Mensah is going to throw for about 300 in this one, multiple scores. He just does not have the rushing upside. At 7K, you're only going to be able to get 3X. I think there's better upside there, so I prefer to play the weapons and less of Mensah in that spot. Next game stack, I think you absolutely have to play some of this Texas A&M Arkansas game. I don't mind playing it as I prefer A&M onslaughts of Reed, Owens, and both wide receivers, Craver and Concepcion. I don't hate. I also like Reed, Owens, and Concepcion. I like Reed and both wide receivers. I think there's a bunch of ways to play this. You're going to want exposure to it because Arkansas's defense is so bad. Now, if I'm bringing it back, it's probably Green. And do I want to bring it back with anybody else? I don't know. I think Omega Blake is priced too much for me. I probably prefer to play it through CJ Brown as my bring back at 3,100. But like I've mentioned before, I think that there is just some weirdness. I don't hate Raylon Sharp as the bring back. So I would mix and match my bringbacks for Arkansas if I'm going to play one. I don't love playing Mike Washington. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. The pass catching's not really there. If they're playing from behind, how much can I get out of him? I just think that's a very thin play by comparison. A lot of what I'm interested in is mainly A&M on this, but mix in match a little bit of Arkansas back in there. I think Taylor Green's a fine play. I think he's not infallible though. That's for sure. I don't think you have to play Taylor Green if you're getting a ton of exposure to A&M. Clemson, SMU, we mentioned. Like I said, I don't think you have to go Kevin Jennings. His floor, he's more of a floor play. I don't love him at this price tag. I would prefer to play this as Klubnik, Randall, Wesco, and then bring it back with Jordan Hudson. That's definitely my preferred option in that one. That's the number one way for me to play that. And finally, Ole Miss, Georgia. I think I'm going to go full on this if I'm playing it as a game stack. Chambliss and Stockton. Stockton's got enough rushing upside that I'm willing to take a chance here and there. He did look a little concussed last week, but Chambliss, Stockton. I prefer Caden Lee personally, but I think it's dealer's choice as your Chambliss guy. I like Zachariah Branch as my preferred stack option with Haynes King. I don't like the run game for them. Caden Lee, I like. I think people will end up on like Stribling, Wright, Alexander. I just prefer Caden Lee this week. That's just my gut. And then Kewan Lacey. So there's going to be plenty of. I'll probably do a Chambliss, Lacey, Lee, Branch, and yes, Brian. Yes, Chambliss isn't too cheap. Look at you tuning in. So I'd say Chambliss, Lacey, Lee, Stockton, Branch, or remove Stockton. So I'll play that a few different ways, but those are things that will be fun if you want to get some cheap exposure to it. Then play those in like the 50-cent mini max, 150 max, or whatever. That's gonna be fun way to test some of this stuff for cheap. Team stack wise, I don't mind Ohio State onslaughts. If you want to go Julian Sayin with both wide receivers and then Bo Jackson or CJ Donaldson, there is a world that you could do that. I think you could play Jackson and Donaldson together. Donaldson's getting enough work and he has so much touchdown equity that at 4,100, if you wanted to go there and hope that he gets 17, I understand it. But I do think you can easily go full game stack. I just don't love Sayin because I think his floor, he's just a floor play. I don't have the 35-point ceiling. He does not a runner. He's going to throw the ball well, but there's just too many paths to him failing. So I think you can play that as an onslaught. I just don't love it. We mentioned, let's go Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech's an interesting onslaught team. You can easily go. I like the onslaught of Texas Tech more if it's Will Hammond over Bayron, but I think Bayron's going to end up playing. You can play both running backs, certainly, Dickey and Williams. And then you could play any number of the wide receivers. I probably prefer. I'm willing to buy Eakin this week. Eakin did not do crap last week, but I feel like it's an Eakin week. That's usually what happens in this offense. Douglas has been getting all the hype. I think people are going to go to Douglas. I'll switch to Eakin for this week, and I don't mind Carter. Carter's great value on FanDuel, by the way. But yeah, you can play Terrence Carter. Not my favorite team stack there. That's why I went with it now. All right, 2 more onslaughts. I think Oklahoma is actually a fun onslaught, but it's really just a Mateer. I don't think you can play the running backs. So I think it's Mateer and Satania, and that's it. Washington is always an onslaught team. There's a big three, and it's very clear. It's Denzel Boston, it's Jonah Coleman, and it's DeMond Williams. So you want to play the onslaught there and I think that's actually somewhat of a fun game stack because we know where all the production is going to come from. You could easily do a DeMond Williams, Jordan Marshall because he's so cheap, Jonah Coleman, Denzel Boston, Andrew Marsh. That's actually a fun game. I'm putting that in. All right, fine. We're going that. Let me put down Washington, Michigan. So I'm gonna do a Washington, Michigan game stack just because I think there's ways for that to play out. It's not my favorite, but it's in play. Last team, and this is playing to Brian and his fandom. I think you can game stack or onslaught LSU. I don't love it. Like, what is the upside for Nuss? But if you want to do it, go right ahead. I mean, he's priced at 7,800 on FanDuel. It's interesting, I guess. I don't think Vandy's defense is particularly good. So I don't have any problem with this. And I also don't have a problem if you take 3 of these guys and do that. You know what I mean? If Nuss is going to get there, he's going to have to throw for 300 and multiple scores. Maybe you say, I don't want Durham in this spot. Sure. This is what Brian wanted to play last week and didn't. He comes up with some weird crap, so I'm trying to come up with weird crap too, a.k.a. LSU triples and onslaughts. And I'm not playing anybody for Vandy. I don't think Vandy stands. I think Vandy's in deep doo-doo this week. I don't like Eli Stowers in this spot. I don't like the volume that Cedric Alexander's been getting. And I do not like Pavia getting chased around by Harold Perkins. So, but I mean, I guarantee you there's going to be zero people in the entire in any contest, 50 cent, 10 cent, any of that have a freaking Michigan Washington game stack. So play that at your own risk, but there is a non-zero chance that game wins you the tournament. It's non-zero. I'll say that. It's probably 0.1%, but it's non-zero. All right. As mentioned previously this week, I will have I'll be gone tomorrow morning. I'll have a show. I scheduled it already for 7 p.m. Central tomorrow night. And then that way we'll do the FanDuel breakdown show then. And then I've got my player pool already ready for that one. That's an interesting slate, to say the least. And then we will do the live before lock on Saturday morning. I'm going to try to basically have everything built tomorrow and or today, except for my big teams. I'm kind of trying to just make it a habit that I build the stuff for this contest on Saturday morning, and everything else is already built by then. So that takes some pressure off of me. So anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. All streams for the rest of the week are scheduled already, and I will see you guys then. Good luck in your contests tonight. I'm not going to talk about East Carolina, Tulane, or I think it's Tulane. I did get some information. John Summerall, it seems like he might be the next Florida head coach. Just a little birdie whispered in my ear about that. So if that does come out later on, eventually in the next week, don't be shocked. If it doesn't,